Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This show and all episodes are brought to you by Never Too Hungover. Never Too Hungover is a healthy vitamin blend that helps neutralize toxins, restore vital nutrients, and rehydrate the body. It is the best tasting and most effective way to help prevent or recover from hangovers. There are two types: prevention, which you drink before or during your wild night out on the town. And if you've had too many Vegas bombs and are still struggling the next day, the boost will help set you straight. Thanks for the samples, Never Too Hungover. Juice in the Morning listeners, use the promo code JUICEBOX for 25% off your order. You can use that on their website at nevertoohungover.com, and you can also use that same promo code, and that is JUICEBOX on Amazon.com.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to download the Juice in the Morning podcast. This week's episode features Chris Heffernan, an MMA fighter from the Indianapolis area. We're going to work together on possibly having another episode where we preview fights coming up soon. So if you're interested in that, pay attention. This episode, we talked about a lot of different shit. Enjoy it, love it, comment, review, interact with me, because that's all this is about. Thank you and enjoy.
All right, welcome to Juice in the Morning. This is a weekly podcast show, and I appreciate you guys sharing, downloading, and interacting. Everybody that has written reviews and just basically interacted with me through social media, I really appreciate it, because that's why I do this. I do this because I want to be famous. Everybody knows that. Like, I mean, it's kind of it's a very narcissistic thing, but it's the reason I do it. So once again, thank you for downloading, sharing, interacting, and I just encourage you guys to keep interacting with me. The more you guys talk to me, the more I can, create content, because it'll give me something to talk about. So once again, thanks to the Smugcast guys. I did their show yesterday, so when you're listening to this, it was Sunday. It's Monday now. I don't know. It's fucked up. But anyways, thank you, Smugcast. You guys are awesome. I appreciate doing the show with you guys. And then also, Paul Lungard is going to be on the podcast soon. He does daily fantasy videos on YouTube. So if you just look for, I think it's DFS. I'm going to look it up, and I'll add something in later. And then also, Hannah, I know that you are out there listening. I appreciate you doing the tailgate episode. I'm going to have to get you back in the studio. You need to quit partying so much so we can get you in here. But once again, we have Shane Jones. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. I appreciate you doing the show with me, and also his friend Chris Heffernan. How you doing, bud?
Pretty good.
So when we were planning this episode, we talked about doing some MMA talking about McGregor and Mayweather, those kinds of things. That's a little bit in the past, but I still want to get into it at some point. But to introduce you guys to Chris also competes as an MMA fighter. So, kind of tell us where you got started and how you got into it, because I think it would be a very interesting background.
Yeah. No, I started MMA, jiu-jitsu. I kind of got into the MMA world first. That was the initial thought. Saw it on TV and everything. But, I got in a little rut with drugs, heroin specifically.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I was on it for probably 3 years, so it was pretty bad. I saw a fighter named Matt Brown. He was talking on TV, and he just said, some words that changed my life. He just said, "I'm the same person now as I was back then." Now, he's obviously he was a drug user too, heroin, and
get a little bit up on the mic. Yeah,
gotcha.
No, you're all right.
No, but he was a heroin user too,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "I'm the same person now as I was then. I just used to take something negative to the extreme. I now take something positive to the extreme instead." And those words kind of changed my outlook on addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you can use kind of as a blessing or a curse. You can become addicted to something that ruins your life. Sex, food,
mm-hmm.
drugs, all that stuff. or you can become addicted to something positive, such as MMA or working. Which
So,
obviously
like turning that like energy around into something positive, because it's obviously a strong energy. So
exactly. Another word for it, I think, is obsession. You just become obsessed with what you do. Whatever that is, you're going to be obsessed with it. You're going to do to the fullest. Mine is my business and MMA. So those are my two obsessions, I guess.
And so what is the business that you do right now?
I own a home services business, so it's window cleaning, power washing.
Definitely plug that so that if anybody's listening, they can hit you up.
Yes, HeffernanHomeservices.com. So it's a great business. I started that about this is our third year now.
Nice.
So it's been growing crazy.
So the best quote that I looked up beforehand, I wanted to get a video for it so we could play it, but it's Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So my first question that I talked about on the Spudcast yesterday, I'm going to ask both of you guys, but we'll start with Shane. Have you ever been punched in the mouth?
Yeah. More times than I'd like to admit.
Do you remember all of them?
Most of them, at least.
Cool.
So
some of them were when I've been drinking and maybe get a little louder than I want to be.
So what was your thoughts when you got punched in the mouth?
Beforehand, I was thinking I'm invincible.
There
and
you
then
go.
immediately after was, I guess I'm doing this. So you get hit and you're around people and you don't want to look stupid, so you're like, I'm just going to start throwing hands and hope it works out for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I was talking to the guys yesterday. I've never actually, I've been punched one time in the face, and that was it. Like literally one time, and literally I looked at I was in my car, and I owed this guy money for his jacket because I had gotten blacked out drunk and pissed on his jacket. I laid it on the ground and took a piss on his jacket, and the kid told me I owed him money for a new jacket, and I avoided him pretty much all summer. And I got invited to a party that he was at, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And I pull up, got my windows down. I had a sound system in my car, so I was blaring music, and I just remember sitting there and just feeling out of nowhere, just like a fist in the side of my face, and I didn't know how to react. I was like, do I get out of the car and fight this guy, or what?
So my question is, he must have been a really, really nice jacket.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Or is just the principle of that you peed on his jacket?
Exactly.
Well, a little bit of both, probably.
Yeah. And so it was just a really weird situation, and I always wonder, maybe I can take a punch, because I remember it not really fazing me, just more kind of shocked, and that was weird, and I just rolled my window up and drove off.
I think everybody should get punched in the face at least once.
I agree.
Because
I agree.
It allows you the realization that you're not made of glass.
Exactly.
And that you can take it. You know, it's not as bad as you think.
Perfect example. When I was a kid, I swear, from the age of when I was a kid all the way up to 8th grade, I was just such a pussy.
I still am. Don't worry.
And then I finally I got in a fight that I didn't want to be in, got my ass beat, and went home and was like, that wasn't that bad. I mean, it doesn't hurt while you're doing it. I mean, later on you might have a black eye and you're like, whatever, but it doesn't hurt while you're getting punched because you're so
jacked up.
Yeah, ready to go. So.
So then, how about you? When you were before training and everything, did you ever get into scraps before that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in quite a few, especially with my A-game drug days. So that lifestyle definitely leads to fighting from time to time, and then back in high school too. So, but same thing. I first fight that I had gotten in, I was probably 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I got hit, and it just ended up your adrenaline's pumping. It didn't hurt. You think you get hit, and it's just devastating.
Yeah,
some people get hit, and it's holy shit, that looks like it really, really hurts. And then you end up hitting it. It's with your adrenaline and everything going on, it doesn't hurt as bad as you think. And obviously later you got some repercussions. The next day you're sore. Yeah. But
I always equated it because I played football in high school, and when I would get blindsided, you just pop back up and be like, oh, that wasn't that was nothing. And but if you saw the hit coming and you kind of cringed up a little bit, that one kind of actually you could feel that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And that's how I felt about my getting punched in the face, because it was just completely out of nowhere, and I didn't even realize it was going to happen. So then that leads me to, what was it like in your first actual fight, in a cage?
The first one was just like I planned.
Yeah.
It literally lasted about, I think it was 70 seconds or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I threw an uppercut in the clinch and landed it. And I kind of had my eyes closed, and I just threw it up there because I had him clinched. I had a plum tie on him. I threw the uppercut, and just like I had envisioned, which usually doesn't happen in fights, he dropped and was all the way asleep.
Oh, nice.
There it went. So that one was more of a I wouldn't say that was really it was a fight, obviously, but it didn't give me a lot of experience or anything like that. So, it was a good knockout and it was good. But that was the first MMA fight that I had.
Yeah.
I've had, up until that point, probably 6 kickboxing fights, 3 or 4 boxing fights, but mainly a lot of jiu-jitsu, which was all grappling. So I had some experience before that.
Nice. So that also makes me think of, I had a friend that wanted to compete in MMA, and he was a guy that he didn't train really. I mean, I think he went to the gym like once a week or something like that leading up to. He fought 3 times, and I was impressed that he got in there those 3 times because he, like I said, didn't train very much and was like kind of like a partier, would drink with us, and he's a cigarette smoker and everything like that. And I was like, the whole time he would talk about this training, I was like, this guy's going to get his ass beat as soon as he steps in the ring. And lo and behold, dude, the guy fought 3 times and I don't think he spent more than, so if he got knocked out or choked out in the first like minute every time, he spent less than 3 minutes in the ring in those 3 fights. Nice. And I just remember watching him in like his very first one. He's like, jumping around, getting loose or whatever, and they ring the bell or do whatever they're doing and like start it, and he goes running at this guy, gets kicked in the head, and is just out, just night, like, and falls to the ground. And I was like, all right, well, that wasn't very successful, and and
can happen.
and then he literally said, oh, I'm going to do it again. I was like, okay. Second time, same thing, big dude picks him up, slams him on the ground, and just starts punching him in the face, and he was out again. And the third time, a guy got him in a rear naked choke and just choked him out within like 30 seconds. So,
3. Damn.
So that guy definitely didn't do any more MMA after that.
I feel like that's a big aspect of, like, I'm not saying I've never fought in the cage or whatever, but I would think that as soon as you start, like, you think you can go in there and just brawl it out. But 90% of people don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, so they're not ready to defend a choke or something like that, and like you just go in there and get. It's not even a punching thing. It's just like go in and get choked out immediately.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, MMA is more grappling oriented, more wrestling oriented, and the thing I like about it, I mean, I never wrestled in high school, but it does give high school wrestlers a pro level now, which before obviously they didn't have.
Yeah.
So,
and did you play any sports in high school?
I did. I played tennis.
Oh, nice. That's definitely not expected.
Definitely not expected for sure. No, I played tennis and I played basketball and baseball and stuff like that all growing up. But just in high school, it was mainly tennis, and I played baseball 2 years too. But it was more tennis was the serious.
And so that's what we get into, like when we were talking about like the Mayweather-McGregor thing, like how he got gassed. So what's the difference in training for like an MMA fight? Then you said you've done some boxing and done jiu-jitsu and stuff. What's the difference in like the, I think, endurance aspect? Because McGregor, you could tell in that boxing match, just died.
So for him, since it's a pro fight with 12 rounds, the boxing is the same, almost MMA, and honestly, most MMA fights are going to be a little bit more time at the amateur level. Golden Gloves, you have 3 2-minute rounds, so it's almost the same. Yeah. Once you get into those 12 rounds, you've developed another aspect, and a lot of people say that Mayweather is a 6-round fighter, and he's 6 to 12 fighter, and that's how he wins his fights. So it's kind of a rope-a-dope style with boxing. And it's more, they're both sports, but there's more of a strategy. And Mayweather played it very well. A lot of people say, oh, McGregor won the first day. Well, yeah, he did. But I don't necessarily think that Mayweather was going out and really...
Well, and you could even hear in the corner the guy was saying, "Yep, just let him punch himself out, and then we'll take him in the end or whatever."
Well, I think Mayweather said that he was going to take him in the 6th, and then kind of wait. It was the 6th, right?
I can't remember what his
9.
It might have been 6 or 9. I can't remember what his prediction
but
was.
I think he waited till the round that he said that. I literally think that he waited till the round that he said he was going to win it in, and then that's when he turned on the gas pedal.
Yeah, and it's just funny because you could almost tell watching it that he did not look worried the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, and I think
even in this corner, he's sitting there, and that corner, I can't remember what round it was. A round that he lost. It was like round 3 or 4, and he turned right at the corner and or at the camera and smiled. And it gave me an eerie feeling. I was like, man, he just seems too comfortable for how bad he's losing these rounds. Yeah. And everybody was shocked, honestly.
You could see the exact moment that he went from like, okay, I'm just taking punches to, all right, now I'm going to start fighting.
Yeah.
Like, you could see. Like it's clear as day the difference.
Yeah, and it's crazy how that just kind of flips like that, and how you can kind of turn it on, but also like just that endurance, like to be able to just kind of keep. I mean, he was not winded, and McGregor couldn't even stand up almost. Like he was literally like almost falling over himself, let alone when he's getting punched.
So it's the best defensive boxer in the to him, this is his job. He's been doing this for 20 years, so. This is just another day in the ring. So
what did leading up to it, being from like MMA and stuff? What was your thoughts? Like, did you think McGregor had any chance at all?
I didn't. I thought that a win for McGregor would be a decision loss. Honestly, if he lost the decision to Mayweather, he took him all 12, and that was a victory in his mind, and MMA's mind too. I thought that was as far as it would go, because I didn't see a knockout for Mayweather being a possibility. He doesn't have a lot of. He's not a knockout artist.
Yeah,
he really isn't. But I didn't see that happening. But I also didn't see the game plan he implemented, and like McGregor said, he did definitely knock him out with his wind, not really a punch. I don't necessarily think that McGregor was rocked at any point.
No,
he was just gassed.
Yeah,
completely. So, That's pretty much my take on that.
And what I want to say is, like, at least it's what I always say about any of these kind of events. If it's entertaining, I'm happy. Like, at least something happened. It wasn't just like a complete like domination by Mayweather. It wasn't like, it wasn't just McGregor, where like he wore himself out, but he at least got some good punches in there. I think he landed some punches that nobody else has really landed on Mayweather, which was cool, cool to see.
But not only that, the hype was just so, because you have two best promotional people.
Yeah,
McGregor's he promotes himself like crazy.
Yeah,
he went from nothing to everything.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Mayweather's been doing this for 20 years. And it's got the Bugattis and the strip clubs and all that stuff.
Yep.
And so those two aspects put together, and their little tour they did in the beginning, like the promo tours or whatever, those were awesome
gold
to watch. Just watching them make fun of each other and walk around
Yeah, from a business aspect, that was definitely a good fight. And I think Gary Vee was the one that called it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
he even has a little clip on his Instagram of what exactly he said, and Joe Rogan was like, that fight's never going to happen. And Gary Vee called exactly how it was going to happen, and it did, and I was like, damn. So
Gary Vee's awesome, by the way.
Yes.
I actually have emailed him a couple of times trying to get him just to call in or something I think you have to pay for it, so I'm going to figure that out.
Also, I think the fight was pretty short notice too. Like in like a lot of boxing fights, you have like long times to train and stuff.
Yeah.
And McGregor in that aspect took, what was it, like 3 months?
Yeah.
Because I know I started hearing about it in like, I don't know.
The hype was probably
April. I started hearing like little things about it, and then June, July is like, oh, this might happen, and then July obviously is when they announced it, I think. But then you're like, oh wow, this is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
They might have knew it was going to happen, 6 months ago. But,
I heard,
but with all the complications with the UFC case,
yeah, that's what I heard. UFC was the problem
and contracts and things like that.
Because that was a boxing
event.
Yeah, so you can't. I mean, it's when you mesh those two things, there's going to be a lot of stuff involved. So.
Yep.
So, Chris, who do you look up to as a fighter? Like, who was it that do you model yourself after anybody, or do you kind of do your own thing?
I'm a big fan. Like I said, Matt Brown, obviously from the story that I told and his background with drugs. But I'm a big Uriah Faber fan. As far as him being an entrepreneur and him running that team, and I've read his book also, and he's definitely one of my role models for sure. I'm a big fan of him. So,
and what kind of style fighting would you say you do in MMA? Because you said you've trained in a bunch of different ways. Like, are you kind of a guy that goes after somebody? Do you kind of like wait for your opportunity? How does that go? Like, how do you make your plan?
I'm definitely a pressure fighter, that's for sure. More of a brawler versus. I mean, I'm a technician too and a counter striker.
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, I feel as though, and this is a kind of a novice mindset here, but I feel as though if someone hits me as hard as they can and I don't drop, I'm winning.
Yeah, that's.
I have that. It's like
go.
you're throwing the kitchen table at me and I'm coming forward still.
Yeah.
You know, and you can tell in people's eyes when they're really imposing on you and you're still coming forward that they're like, oh boy, this isn't going to be fun.
Yeah.
To me, that's good, but that's a fight. That's not a sport. And so I'm kind of trying to change my game there to where that is gonna, and that's lost me decisions before too. You know, and in my mind, at the end of the fight, I feel like I had more fun, and I imposed my game plan, which was just be a bull. You know, and they just backed up and countered, but they won because it's a sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then also like, this is something that I think is like super interesting. Is like, what goes through your mind when you're actually in there? Are you literally just thinking about your like training, your plan? Because I just feel like if I was dropped into that situation, I would like have. I don't even know what I would think. So
it's kind of hard to say. You kind of go, and a lot of fighters will say this, you kind of go into like an autopilot mode.
Yeah.
And so how good is your autopilot, really? How good have you
that's
trained?
perfect.
You know,
I think a
but
lot of
honestly,
people
that's the truth.
are different. Like, not that I.
That is true too.
Because like a lot of people, they'll have a plan, and then as soon as the fight starts, they'll throw it right out the window. And then other people stick to their plan and go with it.
And a lot of that is experience too. But everybody, you know, and my teammate Andrew's one that says it too. He says he doesn't remember any fight he's ever done.
Yeah.
He literally blacks out, and it's not a blackout from damage. It's a blackout from nerves, from shock, adrenaline. You know, so it's hard to say, and every fight's different. It just depends on what you're going through at that time. It's just the same as going into. It's a different experience.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it and like you just saying that you saw, like you can see in somebody's eyes like their mindset change. I just think it's impressive and like interesting that you can actually notice that while you're fighting, like that you can see that person's like demeanor change, like in their eyes.
And more so not their eyes, their mannerisms too.
Yeah.
You can tell when they're throwing. You know, it's a body language thing, which is what fighting is, and you can just tell by what they're doing. Like, oh man, this is changing, and you can tell someone what they're thinking through their mannerisms and what they're doing.
Have you ever had somebody really scared?
I mean, honestly, I think everybody's scared, and that's the thing. And like you said with Mike Tyson, another good quote I like from him is, he said he was terrified every fight he went into.
Oh, wow.
And what made him feel better was looking at the eyes of the opponent and seeing that they were just as scared as he was, and that made him less scared. Yeah. And so when I heard that, I was like, all right, I'm going to start implementing that. So
kind of gave me goosebumps there, like thinking about that.
And that's the truth, though. You have to realize that everyone's human, and when you're going in there, you're fighting another human, and they are just as scared as you are.
Yeah.
So if you think that and you realize, okay, who can handle that better, you're going to have a mental upper hand.
Oh, yeah.
And fighting's mental. A lot of it's mental. Who can show up, who can't. And that's a big part of it.
Well, also you see a lot of people like before fight getting in each other's head, and that's all just to like the more you get into the head, the more that's gonna be on their mind when they're getting ready to fight.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot in the UFC, people talking shit to each other, and then one of them doesn't show up. And I feel like McGregor's the best of that because he gets in people's heads and kind of makes them doubt themselves.
Yeah.
And
that's an important part of the game.
Cody Garbrandt, I don't know if you know.
No love.
Yeah. So he did that with Dominic Cruz, and I was super impressed with his performance.
He was dancing.
Yeah, well, during the hype, Dominic's talking shit, and he's getting so mad he's taking his microphone off and like walking over to where he's at. I thought he was going to go intense, and he was going to show emotion, and he did not.
That was just one occasion where that didn't happen because he literally was fired up before the fight and like wanted to go beat Dominic Cruz's ass, but you thought, oh man, he got into his head, blah blah blah, and then the fight started, and that was not he must have just wiped all that.
Yeah, he like faked him out or something.
Yeah, it worked.
He showed up. He showed up with no emotion.
Because Dominic Cruz, how long had he had the belt for? Like 10 years or something.
It's been a while. He's won like 20. The last time he lost was Uriah.
And then this young kid comes in and just shows him what he's dancing in between, like, yeah.
Yep.
So how often do you train? I know you talked about it. It's kind of like every day.
Yeah, it's every day, and it just depends. For me, since MMA is kind of a mix of a couple different sports, you've got the grappling, the wrestling, and you've got the striking. So, obviously training every day is hard. Once I start a camp, it's more MMA based if I'm fighting an MMA camp. But, I train every day. It's just a matter of what I'm training. If I've got something nagging me like a hip or something, I'm not going to train as much jiu-jitsu. I'll just strike.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If I've got a nerve problem in my neck, I'm not going to be sparring. I'll be grappling more. So it is every day. When I'm training, I'll usually 3 or 4 days a week condition in the morning, which consists of just running. I usually run every day.
Yeah.
But it's just a harder, more intense run, so battle ropes, stuff like that for the endurance.
Yeah.
And then basic practice with sparring and stuff like that in the afternoon.
And I've heard on I think it was Joe Rogan's podcast talking about fighters doing less of like actually like sparring like and like hitting each other in the head. Is that for real, or is that like kind of?
I think it just depends on what gym you go to.
Yeah.
Honestly, you kind of have to see what style fits you. For me, if I'm not sparring, no matter how many mitts I'm hitting, no matter how much shadow boxing I'm doing, my timing's off.
Yeah.
Which has kind of been the case the last 2 weeks. We've been doing it at MMA. We've been doing nothing but pad work. And I sparred yesterday, and my timing was off. You know, my shots look crisp, but I wasn't countering right, and my timing, there's a barrier there.
Yeah.
And I guess it also depends on what level you're at. You know, I'm still an amateur, so I'm at an amateur level. I need to get that experience from sparring.
Yeah.
But guys like Donald Cowboy Cerrone are probably who you're referring to there from the podcast.
Yeah.
He's got his game built, and he's been doing this so long that for him, sparring all the time isn't really as necessary because he's already built his game.
Well, not only that, but I feel like once you get a UFC fighter gets farther into their career, they need to take less and less hits because they only have so much time left. So anytime that they can take less hits in the gym, and when it comes to actual fighting, that's when you get all your hits.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna last longer as a UFC fighter, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure.
Excuse me. And it's interesting because like everybody talks about with like football, like CTE and all that stuff. And we haven't really heard a lot, I think, with MMA. So, do you think there's less of a chance of getting the concussions and stuff like that while you're fighting, or is it just because it hasn't been around as long as NFL or college football and stuff like that, where it's all kind of showing up and coming to the forefront?
Yeah, I think there's obviously it's a combat sport.
Yeah.
There's still going to be that danger. But I think that in football, it is more devastating just because, if you look at the science behind it, I don't know if you've seen the movie Concussion.
I haven't. I want to. I just have never actually taken the time to sit down and watch it.
So the science is, I guess, and this goes with headgear too, and boxers are more prone to brain damage than MMA fighters as well. But it's more of a distribution throughout your entire brain. With the helmet on, it doesn't hurt as bad. But you got to think of how the body's designed. If it hurts, stop doing it. So putting something on that stops that from hurting is just masking something that could cause an injury, and that's what a helmet does. And when you're constantly butting with another helmet, it's just distributing that force throughout your entire head instead of at that one specific point. And that's kind of, I guess, the concept behind the concussions and the CTE and all that stuff.
And a lot of it, like I've thought about, is that you're getting like these more advanced helmets, so it's basically turning people into like human missiles. Like they're like, I'm not going to get fucked up because I've got this new helmet that's supposed to prevent that, so I'm just going to hit somebody even harder because I'm going to be safer. And in actuality, it's having the reverse effect. It's just making them have more damage.
Exactly.
You got to think like a running back's time in the NFL is like 3 years or something like that. So that tells you something right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not all just head stuff with a
That's
running
probably
back.
more athleticism with the prime, because there's a lot more athleticism in football, I believe, than you see MMA fighters. Randy Couture, 45 years old, still fighting.
I remembered literally seeing one of his fights when I worked at B-Dubs. Like he was like almost 50 or something like that, and he won a fight, and I was like, that's impressive.
A lot of those guys are going to like Bellator and stuff instead because they get a little too old for the UFC, and then they'll go sign with like Pride or Bellator or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that don't know, I guess, when to throw the towel in. They've been doing this 20 years, 15 years. That's all they've built. That's all they do, and it's such an intense sport that you're doing twice a day, 5 hours a day, that once you run to the point of not being able to do that, what do you do with life now?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's kind of where a lot of guys, I think, are.
With you, like, how many fights have you been in, or how many fights have you competed in?
I'm 2-0 in MMA.
Nice.
So I've got my third one coming up in Ohio on the 28th. I was supposed to fight on the Coliseum Combat card on the 7th. Yeah. But my opponent got injured last second. So
that sucks.
Yeah. and it goes along with the brain and all that. MMA is a devastating sport, so I've had 2 fights, but I've had a lot of kickboxing and boxing, but mainly grappling.
Yeah.
I was gonna say your jiu-jitsu. He's been all kinds of.
Yeah, I've been all over the U.S. competing, and I can't even count. I've probably done 1,000. I've probably done 200, 300 tournaments over the last 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome.
I'm constantly doing those. So.
So you said the 28th, then you said in Ohio?
Yeah, October 28th.
Nice. I might have to try to make that. That'd be sweet to see like somebody that actually had in here, like watch them fight.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, we'll roll out there. Maybe I'll get some mobile podcasting. I have that little recorder. We can just like kind of talk and do our own
there we go.
Our own fight thing, like
nice.
How Joe Rogan does the fight experience or whatever.
Fight companion.
Fight companion. That'd be sweet. But I think that. It's a very interesting sport, and it's something that I've heard one of my favorite podcasters, Adam Carolla, talks about the fact that he thinks that America is becoming a lot more like men are becoming a lot more pussies, like being pussies more. So like that's why MMA got really popular, because we wanted to see people like actually like fight and be manly. And I wonder, what is it like? Have you ever had anybody like kind of challenge you because they know you do MMA, like in a public place?
In a public place, I've had. Not necessarily challenge me in a public place, no. But I've had people that kind of know of me be out with other buddies. They're drunk, and now all of a sudden they're trying to start shit with other people because they know I fight. So they're like, oh, they.
So they think they've got you in the
me in the back, but in reality, I think, dude, I don't even barely know you. I'm not backing you up in the street.
Well, not only that, you probably hang out with more than like 3 people you hang out with at least all train MMA.
Exactly.
So you get that one guy that doesn't train MMA, and he's like, "What's up, bro?" Like talking shit to people because he knows like they got my back.
Yeah,
exactly.
He feels invincible because he's got backup.
And that is a good point. It's such a consuming sport that my whole life, all my friends, damn near, they all train. So being in a social setting with people that don't train as far as friends, it kind of really doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah,
honestly.
That makes sense. I mean, it's as I keep doing the podcast, I meet more and more people that do it. So like you end up hanging out with those kind of people a lot more, because I'm trying to surround myself with more people that are just like creative and want to do stuff like this. And that makes a lot of sense that you would what is the quote? You're the most like the 5 people that you hang out with the most, or something like that. So if you surround yourself with a bunch of people that are not doing anything, you're not going to probably do anything because you're surrounding yourself with those kind of people.
I think it's more in the reverse. When you start to change what you do, the people in your life kind of change.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, here's 5 people I want to hang out with, you hang out with them, and then that's what you do.
Yeah.
You usually hang out with those people if that's what
that makes sense too.
You know what I mean?
Well,
so
have you ever noticed, like, I feel like when I had my little girl, the first thing I did was like stop partying as much. I'm not saying I don't party.
And now probably a lot of people you hang out with have kids. Or,
in the beginning it wasn't that way, and I lost a lot of friends, and like because I didn't want to go out and drink every night, and that's whatever. I mean, like I was like kind of like, not to sound harsh, but like good riddance. Like if you don't want to hang out with me and like, chill with my kid, then later.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes you do have to make those changes because obviously the friends are not the actual friends that you thought they were if they're not there anymore.
Exactly. And a lot of people I noticed that I used to hang out with, all I did ever was get drunk with them, and then when you hang out with them when you're sober, you're like, we have nothing in common.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have nothing to talk about.
Like,
I've had that happen before.
Like in my head, I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna hang out with this dude anymore.
Yep, had that happen numerous times. That's for sure. And it makes it easy. When you change what you do, you don't have to now force yourself not to hang out with somebody. They don't want to hang out with you. You got a kid, you're not going out and partying, they don't want to hang out with you anymore. So that it makes it easy, and it's selection, I guess. But I mean that's the harsh reality of it, really.
So basically I think we've had pretty good conversation so far. Is there anything that you want to bring up? Like if there's anything with like MMA that people may not know about, because I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I don't know about. I've already asked all my questions, kind of like what I don't know about, but maybe something you want to share, maybe plug something like.
I don't know.
I think you should just tell them how awesome jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah.
So I do want to know. I do want to actually. Let me get back into that. So I do want to know more about jiu-jitsu, because when I hear Joe Rogan and them talk about it, they talk about how it's like one of the most like like hardcore things that they've ever done. And also, they talk, like he was talking with somebody and they were talking about how they like haven't rolled in a while and like they like miss doing that. So what does that even mean? Like I didn't even know what they were talking about when they said they haven't rolled in a while.
So rolling would just be, it's just a terminology for going live.
Okay.
So you're going with your opponent, trying to submit them, they're trying to submit you. And that's pretty much what rolling is. It's just what we call it. But jiu-jitsu is, I like jiu-jitsu the most out of all of the martial arts, really, because you can't, even when you're sparring with your partners as far as striking goes in the gym, you kind of have to put a reserve on or you're going to run out of sparring partners. Or like, dude, I don't want to spar with that dude. He just throws bombs all the time.
Yeah,
He's always trying to hurt.
Just teeing off.
Exactly, just always teeing off. So you have to constantly reserve, and it kind of builds a little bit of a, it's like, oh, well, if I was going hard, I'd beat that guy or this and that. You know, so it's a little, But with jiu-jitsu, you can go 100% every single roll and avoid injury, avoid brain damage, avoid all of this. And it's a real reality check, because there's none of that, oh, if I was going hard, I'd be able to beat that guy, because you're going hard. Yeah. So, it really puts you where you're at, and it makes you, you lose your ego with that, because there's no excuse.
And they talked about it like it's super technical, and like I'm like...
It's often like the same as people say like chess.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing with it is that I really like is every single person on this planet can have a good style. If basketball, if you're short, kind of fucked. It's just if you're not fast in football, but in jiu-jitsu, if you're short and stocky, now you have a good defense because your limbs are shorter, they're harder to tap. 2, you're going to have a better top game because you're going to have more pressure. Yeah. And you have a game that's built for your body style. And in reverse, if you're really tall and lanky, now you have
leverage,
great triangles, leverage, all this stuff. If you're strong, you have that. If you're flexible, you have that. Every single person has, and some people don't have any of that, and they're just technicians. Yeah. It makes them technical because they know they're not flexible, they're not strong, they're not big. So they are forced to be a technician, and I know a lot of people like that. James is one of them. Yeah. James, he probably barely touches toes. He's a little taller and lanky, but he's just a technician, and his technique is so sound, and his dictionary of moves is phenomenal. You tell him any move, he'll show you 5 ways to get to it or 5 different variations of that move.
That's so crazy to think about.
Him being a black belt, it's just like he will like let you get somewhere and think you're getting somewhere, and then it's just a trap to choke the shit out of you.
Exactly. And even as a white belt, when I would go, I was one of the really go hard, strong, in shape white belts, but for him, he just, like I said, with the ego thing, you just know your jiu-jitsu is good. So you're fine with whatever, letting people work and all that stuff. And I've even tapped him a couple times because he's let me get to a position, and then I kind of caught him with a little bit. He just didn't expect me to be able to. But at the same time, he let me get to that position.
I remember it being easy to rely on strength. And jiu-jitsu is like, you don't need strength to be good at jiu-jitsu. So I'm not saying that I know, like I only did jiu-jitsu for a year. But
and you should get back into it.
I know, man. And I do not want to be that guy that makes excuses. But like
I'm going to make an excuse.
Excuse me while I make an excuse.
Excuse me while I make an excuse.
But 2 days a week is not enough. And when I started seeing people that started before me get better than me, and I wasn't able to give enough time to it, then I felt like I had to walk away. And I 100% plan on going back as soon as but I go to school full time. I got a daughter. I know those are all excuses. You can make time, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But, I just...
Hey, I'm right there with you.
But I love jiu-jitsu. I only did it for a year. I was a white belt, didn't get a single stripe, but I love jiu-jitsu. So.
No, it is fun, and it's a great hobby, and, and it's not as cardio-induced as something like striking or athletic-induced as that. So you don't have to be in phenomenal shape. You don't have to be real ripped. I mean, it does get you in better shape, but you don't have to have those things.
It's also super humbling. I feel like when I
don't think I need to be any more humbled. I get humbled on a pretty regular basis.
I used to think I was relatively tough. Yeah. And then you go roll on the mat with just straight killers, and you're just like twisted. Like all twisted up the entire time. You're
and the thing with it is when you roll with those straight killers and you look at them, they're not what you would describe in your head as a killer. They're
No,
not
I
Brock Lesnar's.
no,
you know,
I
they're
re-
just
Yeah.
little, weak, goofy.
Yeah,
They've got a
I remember
9 to
when
5, you know.
I remember when I would roll with someone for the very first time. I'd be like, "Oh man, I'm gonna, like," and then after a while, I just started to figure out like I have no idea what I'm getting into right now. This guy's either going to be super good or like, but like his friend Jimmy, he's just kind of a
Yep, Jimmy.
he just doesn't look like, but he's amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He just doesn't. Yeah.
And it's what my buddy and I used to talk about all the time was like, I've always told him like, I'm a pretty big guy. I go to the gym. I feel like I'm pretty strong, but he's like done a little bit of training in like jiu-jitsu and stuff. And there was one time that we were talking and we were like, yeah, we're going to be out somewhere and somebody's going to start shit with somebody, and it's because they think that they're a small person or like not strong, and then that dude's just going to like fuck them up really bad because me and my friends are all pretty big guys, but then like I said, Jimmy, this is another James, my friend, he was like sitting on the couch and we were all drinking, and like I said, he's trained, and I'm like sitting here like talking with my buddy like, hey, we're gonna jump him like and just start wrestling with him and like take him down, and like I didn't know that he had trained at this point like in any kind of fashion, so I was like, we're just gonna like tackle him and like fuck around and stuff. And I remember immediately like I jumped on him, my other buddy like jumped towards him, and like he threw me like over his shoulder or something, like in like some sort of like technical fashion. I was laying on the ground like because
You immediately regretted it.
and I noticed he was like on top of the other guy, like he was like getting ready to choke him out, and he had to like almost like take himself back. It was like, oh, I'm not actually like gonna choke this guy out.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's crazy that it can just kick in like you just know what to do right away, because I know if I was ever in a fight, I just don't know what I would do. Like I have no idea. Like I
And that's another
No
thing
clue.
that they used to talk about at IBJJA is like you just get harder to kill, and you get more in sync with like when you roll more. The more you roll, the more you get comfortable being in those bad situations, and like you kind of like you get used to being beaten up pretty much. And you're like, so if you were to actually be put in that situation, I feel like even from the year that I did it, I would be a lot more calm if I was on the ground getting like, because sometimes in jiu-jitsu, the very worst position, if you know jiu-jitsu, can be not a bad position at all.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys with the sub-only culture are, and I think it was Gary Tona and somebody had purposely got mounted, which obviously, if you know anything about jiu-jitsu, is a horrible position.
Yeah.
But it does create an opportunity to, to bridge and attack the leg.
Yeah.
So there's no points in the sub-only culture.
Yeah.
So he purposely laid flat, let the guy mount him, and then from there had an easy attack on the leg. So,
oh wow.
There's a lot of stuff like that too. So.
It's always fun watching MMA and stuff with people that don't get it, like, and have never watched it, because the last time I was watching it, there was like a guy kind of like, fighting almost from the ground. Like he was like wanting the guy to like come and try to like fight him there because he
sitting in guard.
Yeah, because he knew
exactly.
he knew how to like go from there. And it's just funny like watching with people like, why is he just laying there? And I'm like, well, he's really good at that ground game.
That's
and
what makes the UFC a lot more like fun to watch now that I kind of get a little grasp of
You get the concept of
jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
So like when they're on the ground, everyone else is like, man, this is boring. And then you kind of see like, I'm not that guy that's like, he needs to do this.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I see,
But
I can tell
You
what's
see
going,
what's going on.
as opposed to just two guys on top of each other.
So the guy filming the Facebook Live, Cam, he actually got me into soccer. Like I thought soccer was the dumbest sport in the world. Like I was like, this is stupid. It's boring. I have no idea what's going on. They literally run down here and then they run down here. Like it's what the fuck's going on.
And they score like 1 or 2 points a game.
Yeah. And Cam and I were actually watching the World Cup, like when USA was doing decent or whatever. And I remember he was just like kind of explaining to me like, this is actually like, this play's exciting because this is what they're trying to do. And once I started to like kind of understand it and see how it was going, like forming and like stuff like that, I got really into it. Because then like if you watch it like that and you start to understand stuff, it makes it way more exciting because you know that this is like a potential scoring play. Or for example, with you probably like, paying attention to MMA, you're like, oh, I know like what's going to happen now. Like, and it just makes it more exciting to watch. And
I'll watch tennis all day because I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But same thing with the ground. Yeah. So.
And so can you like can you, if you're watching another person like competing or fighting, can you kind of like predict what's going to happen? Like, can you make predictions based on that?
I mean, yeah. As far as you mean by
like seeing them
hype or while they're in the fight,
seeing
in a
them
position.
Actually, both. Now that I think about it, because I didn't really form that very well. So, like, before a fight, do you kind of have a good grasp on who you think's going to win?
Yeah, I feel like I do. I mean, I get surprised. Everybody gets
Yeah,
surprised.
we're gonna get together and do some DraftKings, and
I feel like in the UFC, it's always like one fighter they're really good at one thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not always, but like this one's really good at wrestling. This one's really good at boxing. Jiu-jitsu, obviously, and then you kind of just see like which one's better. So if this guy's boxing is really good and he can stand up with them for a long time, great. But if this guy has really good jiu-jitsu and takes him to the ground and his jiu-jitsu is good enough, it's over.
Yeah.
And you'll see it with two really good wrestlers. You'll see a stand-up war when they're both really not very good at striking. They're okay, but the reason is because neither one of them can take each other down. So now they're forced to be on the feet. Yeah. So wrestling I would say honestly of the martial arts is my weakness, but it is one of the more important for MMA because it dictates where the fight goes. Even if you're not a great jiu-jitsu guy, but you know that you're worse than that guy on the feet, if you can beat him in jiu-jitsu and you can take him there,
then that's your plan.
That's your plan, and you can dictate where the fight goes. And in reverse, if you're a good striker and you have good wrestling defense, you can stay on the feet. So that aspect of where the fight goes is very, very important.
I also feel like when if they're going to the ground, so there's be a jiu-jitsu guy, and he's like, I'm taking this dude to the ground, and the guy's a stand-up boxer. He will just work on
defending, not going
to the ground because he's like, if I go to the ground, he knows I'm screwed. So he's like defend, and then if he goes to the ground, it's over. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So when you're, like I said, we need to get together and make some bets on DraftKings and win some money.
They have UFC. On DraftKings.
Yeah, and basically what you do is you get the list of fighters and you just pick who you think's going to win. I think based on the spread or whatever. And I think it might be more like fantasy football where like if your guy wins you get certain points or whatever. But then there's also just straight betting that you can do on the guys.
There's a couple podcasts that do just like the Big Brown Breakdown. I don't know if you know who.
I haven't seen that one.
Brendan Schaub, former UFC fighter. Yeah. He does the Big Brown Breakdown, and it's like. He always, before the card comes out, he'll say, this is who I think is going to win, but I don't know how, how accurate he is.
Yeah, Brendan's taking off with his podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's doing stand-up, too. Yeah, so that's where he's really standing.
And who's that? Brendan Schaub?
Brendan Schaub.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Does Fighter and the Kid, and then now he's, on the road
That's the one I thought you were talking about. Fighter and the Kid's the one I've seen. I don't know about the, what was the other one you just said was?
Oh, well, okay, so him and Brian Callen do Fighter and the Kid, and now he has his own called the Big Brown Breakdown.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And
how long has that been?
Not very long, just a couple months. So he'll just do predictions and stuff like that, and talk about him and their producer will just talk about what's going on in the UFC because they talk about it in Fighter and the Kid, but they don't.
They don't get into it in depth like he will in this one.
Yeah, he breaks it down.
Yeah, he's taking off.
Hence the name.
Good for him.
Well, we're getting kind of towards the end, so I think that this has been a very interesting conversation. I think if we have another big thing coming up, like a big fight or something like that for you, awesome. We'd love to have you come back on and talk about it and, talk about kind of how you're feeling leading up to it. And then also if we have something that's coming up like, a McGregor thing, like with McGregor and Mayweather, we should do like a preview show next time, and I'll actually plan this out a little bit better instead of just grilling you about MMA the whole time.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that.
Sure. I think that we should do that. And thanks, Shane, for coming on. It was awesome. Thanks, Cam, for doing the Facebook Live video with 0 viewers. Woo! But yeah, this has been an actually official Juice in the Morning podcast. The idea that I had for it in the beginning, which was wake up early and do it kind of like in the midday-ish and instead of at night. So I appreciate everybody that's been yeah, it's not too early for a beer. Shut up.
Put that in there.
I appreciate everybody that listens and downloads, and I hope that you guys enjoy this no matter what time of the day you're listening. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Shane, for coming on, and I appreciate it, guys.
No problem.
I had fun. Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
Peace out.
Juice in the morning.